Hello, hello, and good morning. You know, the original to this was done on the OPASSIVE Singapore Malaysia webinar yesterday, and I encourage you to view that in its entirety. The link has been posted down below. This is on passive judgment, forgiveness, and lifting humanity, and it's all about choices, right? Now, we've all heard about heart, which is applying our ability to do what's right because it's right, even against the opposition. AI with heart, which is administering our ability to do what's right inside a business framework to provide value through automated success and encouraging a mindset of generosity. Now, we've also heard about the correction of the corruption. That just means that we're taking that business model to the world as an alternative to the current online business system or online business model. And we've also listened to and heard about lifting humanity, which is the result of ONPASSIVE generating value and success for its members, and those members in turn sharing what we've learned and sharing what we have with our friends, family, communities, the whole world over. Now, we all know that this is a magnificent journey. The question is, where did it really all start? Well, simply put, everything always starts with a thought and a choice. Now, when ONPASSIVE started about 6 years ago, it was because a man by the name of Mr. MUFAREH, Mr. MUFAREH, thought about creating an online business model that was based on connectedness and mutual benefit. He made a choice as well, and this is, as Dr. Benny always reminds us, to do it or die. Now, we don't always have choices that are as hard-pressed as that one, but we do always have choices. And each of us are where we are because of choices we have made. And we'll hear a lot about choices in the upcoming words or, the next few minutes. But relevant to our topic today, before we ever got to the point of displaying heart as individuals, there's a fork in the road, so to speak, when it comes to our thought process. That's because we always have the choice to go in a direction of judgment or in a direction of forgiveness. That happens a lot with all of our choices, and it happens not only with heart, but that juncture is at every decision in our life. We choose whether we're going to judge it or how we're going to judge it. So forgiveness allows us to let go of our judgments and see others with compassion and understanding. This can lead to stronger, more meaningful relationships. It opens our hearts up to love. Obviously, to continue on the path laid out by ONPASSIVE for lifting humanity, we would choose forgiveness. Now, setting that aside, let's take a look at judgment, because the vast majority of us live in judgment to one degree or another, all right? Judgment refers to the thought process of forming opinions and making evaluations and researching conclusions and coming up with stuff about people, events, and situations, inside our head, even ideas. As the old adage goes, though, when you're pointing one finger at somebody else, there's three of them pointing back at us. So there's a deeper problem with being judgmental about somebody than just what you might consider on the surface, because it actually stems from a lack of self, right? Self awareness or self-worthiness within us. Admit it, right? There's nobody proud to admit that we judge, and yet we all do it. And the question is, why? Why on earth would we do that when it's not something we're proud of and probably not something good for us? Well, it's because inherently it's a me problem. It's not a problem out there. It's a problem inside that everybody undergoes, right? We all experience it, and not a lot of us really think long and hard enough about it to try to address it. It's a real thing. Projection. It's a mechanism that's called projection, and we use it to displace our judgment. In psychology, judgments are often projections, and this means that we may judge others based on things that we secretly worry about and may think that are even true about ourselves. Some of the reasons for this judgmental mentality include that we're trying to avoid dealing with potential feelings of inferiority or shame, perhaps. We have an innate urge to be right, to see ourselves as superior than others or better than others. There's also the binary or polar view of the world around us that makes us think of in extremes, right? Up, down, hot, cold, long, short, that sort of thing. So because of the way we think, okay, you got to either be right or you got to be wrong, and I want to be in the right camp. So incidentally, when we hear about this these days, we don't normally hear there's a third position, and that's the position that's between the two extremes, right in the middle, and that's called balance or equilibrium. Anyway, we end up judging somebody or something because we're projecting a feeling that we have, and in that we are denying ourselves the opportunity to process that thought or feeling for our own healing. So, what exactly is projection? Well, projection is the process of putting what we feel onto a different animal, person, place, object, whatever. And for our purposes, projection is most often used as a defensive projection, which means it's used to project or assign things that we personally find unacceptable, right? We do it in defense of our own thoughts for things that we don't like. For example, we may project anger onto somebody else, believing that they're angry and not us. And quite often, projection allows us to assign negative traits or unwanted emotions to other folks without even being aware that we're doing it. As it's related to forgiveness and judgment, when we talk about projection, we're talking about psychically denying personal ownerships of the things that we've judged, things we don't want to believe or feel or be associated with. These are things we've already judged for ourselves as being undeserving and wicked, right? Perhaps even contemptible. So we project them out, get rid of them, say, hey, I don't do that, you know. We project them energetically this way, and they go out and they kind of spread across the landscape. Again, this is a real thing. It's energetic and people feel it. I mean, we've all felt people come into the room, you go, whoa, you know, bad vibes. Or as soon as they start talking, you know, because words have power, bad vibes, right? Projecting like that uses a form of subtle energy, and that energy, that's a very low intensity energy. Prayer is subtle energy. If you've heard of a biofield or chi or prana, those are all subtle energies. Projection, put another way, is when we mentally direct the energy of those judgments out and they land on whoever or whatever we're directing them at, or whoever happens to be in the vicinity, perhaps. Now, as an aside, they don't really land on anybody. It's more like immersing these folks in what's out there in a field of negative, subtle energy. So it's like a pool of energy. It just surrounds you like radio waves or something. Now, at the root, projecting our judgments is the effect of the denial of a fundamental truth that says nothing we experience is caused outside of us. In fact, what we experience is only the effect of our own choices, which is why I always say and raised my kids saying, we are where we are by the decision that we've made. Now, having said, you know, all that, by projecting outward like we do, we are in effect saying what we experience is not the result of something you and I or we have done, that it's being caused by something outside of us. Usually the person that's torqued us off a piece, right? Anyway, so projection is how we declare that reality is other than the way that God made it, and that we are somehow victims of circumstance in a world that can do things to us and can control us, can cause us to make decisions that we wouldn't otherwise make. When we project our judgments onto somebody else, it helps us believe that our anger or hatred or resentment or whatever we're feeling, right, is justified, that it's okay. Now, off to the side just a little bit, the legal system that we participate in is something that provides a way to make judgment that we cast on others socially acceptable. In this way, through the law, it's okay not to connect with others and treat them compassionately like they've not been crying out for help through their behavior. Rather, by choosing to believe their bad behavior is anything but a cry for help, sometimes we see it as an outright attack, right? In this, we create separation. And through the law, we condemn their behavior, we apply a judgment, and we become justified through their punishment. Still, that punishment is nothing more than an attempt to convince those that doled out the punishment, right, that evil or the low or dense energy or the darkness or whatever you want to call it is not in them, it's out there somewhere. So put another way, projection is trying to get rid of what we do not want to own within ourselves. It's a denial of truth, and it comes from a position of denial. So, imagine for a moment a society that has a legal view that others are an aspect of ourselves, and since we'd help ourselves, then we'd help them by offering healing, right, through forgiveness, love, support. Scriptures say that we should love our neighbors as ourselves, right? Now, can you imagine what that would be like? But if it's something that we want to see happen, then we need to make a choice, because it's got to begin with us, and then we grow through it, through that choice. A lot of ONPASSIVE members are doing that right now. There's a whole lot of groups out there that are lifting humanity in their own way and lifting the ideals that lead to that, But what I'm saying is the way to heal the world is not by trying to change what's outside of us, no matter how much we hear the world crying for help. And lots of people hear it. There's a lot of people in ONPASSIVE that are doing things, right? And it all begins by changing what's inside of us, like so many of us here in ONPASSIVE have done and are doing. Now, when that happens, we become a channel for an energy that knows how to use our gifts, knows how to put us where we need to be when we need to be there, knows how to connect to each other and to events that help us get the job done with heart. How to do what's right because it's right, okay? It's a power that knows how to heal us and how to heal our world. It's one that works in us and through us, and that we tune into, because if we want peace in the world, we have got to have peace within us. Now, projection is the mechanism that we use to do that, to judge others. We all do it, and it colors our brothers and sisters with the very things that we would judge within ourselves. Not really a good thing to do, right? And the things that we don't like, the things that we want to get rid of, are what we put on them. Again, you point fingers at somebody, you got 3 more pointing back at us, right? And that stuff, it all comes from the inside of us, so it's not. Anyway, how do we break the pattern of projection? Well, they say forgiveness is the bridge to the soul. How do we start building that bridge? Well, we do it by understanding first and foremost that we are where we are because of decisions that we have made, and that what we experience has its roots in us. Now, it's kind of simple. It can be a little difficult. It takes commitment, discipline. I mean, you really got to think about what you're doing, to get this thing started. You've heard me say that everything we experience is a reflection of something in us. So when something is reflected to us by the world that causes us to get upset, mad, angry, whatever, those feelings can cause us to move right into that judgment. And it's right then, when we move into judgment and we feel that energy, in those moments where we find ourselves judging something or someone, that's when we can recognize it. And it doesn't matter, whether we're judging something or someone. It's all judgment. But it's in those moments, if we stop right there when we first feel that energy, we'll find that we can choose to look at it, not with judgment, but with innocence, with honesty. We can look at it objectively. And, as I said earlier or yesterday, I don't mean look at it naively or, with ignorance. Objectively and honestly. Don't assign anything to it. When we recognize it, that's when we make that choice, another choice. We make the choice that we're not going to go into unforgiveness or we're not going to cast blame. Of course, You do that, and your mind, our mind, is going to come up with all kinds of reasons why we're right, or we have the right to feel like we do, and we got a reason and a right to judge somebody, right, and to cast that energy out. But judgment in this sense is never justified. The opposite of forgiveness is judgment, and judgment always creates that separation that we were talking about, and it also creates guilt. Nonetheless, we all experience it. When someone has plucked our last nerve, so to speak, by doing something that really gets us upset, we feel it, and we go directly into that feeling, and we start projecting all manner of hurt on them. Now, if we choose, we can also remember in that moment that all events are neutral. This is to say, events have no meaning until we give them meaning, right? We do it from the inside. As such, all events simply provide us with the opportunities for choice. This means we can choose judgment on the one hand or compassion on the other, obviously compassion leading to forgiveness. When we forgive, we're simply choosing to release others from perceptions, the ones that we've been projecting onto them. Ultimately, forgiving someone is actually an act of forgiving ourselves for the projection, for the judgment we've placed on them, because that judgmental energy is not good for us and creates havoc in our system. I don't know if, well, I'll just go ahead and say it. If you've ever seen cellular structure, when you go into judgment, bad things start to happen to our body at the cellular level. Food doesn't get assimilated. Waste processes are stopped. I mean, the whole thing, the energy lowers, it gets all disheveled. The cells go crazy. So this is a very real thing that affects our bodies at very real levels. When we forgive what we think somebody did that caused us to judge, that offense is removed. It goes away along with the related thoughts and feelings. So if there's no offense, there's no reason for judgment. And the judgment dissipates as well. And as a result, we have a healing process that starts. And in this way, forgiveness is a very essential key to our healing and the healing of others. But the real healing starts and ends with the one that forgives. Now, with all of this in mind, we have a way to lift humanity. ONPASSIVE rather, is based on compassion and compassionate action to do exactly that, to lift humanity. And through ONPASSIVE, we can do it more easily. We can be a part of the correction to the corruption by doing what's right and by sharing our abundance, sharing what we've learned with friends, family, communities across the globe. All of these things are provided to us, a pathway, right, provided to us by ONPASSIVE, but it takes heart to make it all work the way that it's meant to, the way that it's been designed to work. So where's our heart in all this, right? I mean, are we clean and clear, right? Do we have some high energy, forgiveness, and compassion? Or are we all like a smoke-filled room, Are we clogged up and cloudy with low energy and bitterness and resentment? Do we spend our time backbiting or murmuring and those things of judgment? I mean, like me, some of us might want to do a little house cleaning to get prepared for the abundance that we know that is coming. And the house cleaning is easy enough to do. I mean, looking at others through the lens of compassion is a choice. Like everything else, it starts small. We're brought experiences through synchronicities. These organizing principles, synchronicities, they line things up for us in a way, right? And it's been through millions of synchronicities that we've all been brought to, put into, and are sharing the journey of ONPASSIVE. And that's been designed to generate success through compassion. And Mr. MUFAREH has modeled it that way. I've said it before, I saw him model forgiveness close up about 4 years ago, and it still inspires me. As a matter of fact, it set me on a path. And just like him, it's up to us individually to choose how we're going to look at things, and as a result, how we're going to feel about them. According to the world, choosing generosity and compassion as a foundation for a business model is insane. Mr. MUFAREH has talked about that, and we kind of chuckle over it, But still, the power to choose in this way, to choose forgiveness, right, frees us to be in the world and not of the world. The power to choose lets us choose our own destiny and our own experiences. And when we choose compassion and doing what's right because it's right, then that sets us on a course that is more likely to change history than anything else. Now, the Dalai Lama said, and I quote, if you want let me start that over. If you want others to be happy, practice compassion. If you want to be happy, practice compassion. So, to close this up in a way, we all judge. It's part of the human experience. Even if we say we don't judge a particular thing, we've simply judged that behavior as acceptable. And then we've moved on, and that's a very good thing. Subconsciously, we all see things in others that is actually within ourselves, be it unresolved feelings or lack of sense of self or problems that were ignored, bad energies, problems, relationships, whatever. It's innately simple, though, if we think about it like this. If what I'm experiencing is not in me and a part of me, then why am I even worried about it? Why should it upset me? So, what we've talked about here today is a way to assist in healing hurts in ourselves and others. But as good as it could be, it's only a way to manage our propensity to judge through choice. Forgiving doesn't mean that we have to personally condone a behavior. By not assigning meaning, right? By looking honestly, objectively, innocently at our experiences, we see all choices as acceptable, as legitimate, but we don't have to condone them for our personal use. They're out there, and they're real, and they're legitimate choices. You can choose them if you want. You don't have to condone them, and you certainly don't have to choose them. It could be that we might behave next week in a way that we wouldn't dream of behaving this week. In that sense, you never want to judge somebody as right or wrong or whatever. Let them do their thing. Let them be them, you be you. Because each experience we have is an opportunity to choose our direction, and thus we choose our next experience. Thank you so very, very much. I hope you appreciate this. Take a look at the background here. There's a lot of information in there that bespeaks ONPASSIVE. And please like, share, and subscribe if this has been useful for you. And like always, we certainly just wish blessing and blessing upon you and upon your family. Thank you.